Hi, this is Will Reed. Formerly this series was called Content Marketing and going through a slight rebrand. One because I think it's just the right time. Given the topics that I was covering, I feel that it wasn't quite an accurate title. And two, just because I wanted to expand my breadth a little bit more. Currently this series, if you've been following it at all, was called Content Marketing and the videos are still available on this channel, where I would kind of relate every type of marketing in one way, shape, or form to content marketing. It was based off the principle by Seth Godin that content marketing is the only marketing left. I still believe that. I certainly believe it is the strongest form of marketing, and I don't think you can succeed without it. But it wasn't quite accurate, and I wanted to form something a little bit different. And that is, kind of using the same principle in some ways, is that all marketing in one way, shape, or form is just now marketing. Whether it's content marketing, digital marketing, PR, any kind of technical tactics, things like that. It all kind of comes back to just being marketing. And I was inspired by listening to a podcast of my wife's cousin, so I consider my cousin as well, Jeffrey Cologne, releasing a book in a couple of months actually. And he just said, it's not digital marketing, it's just marketing. So stop trying to call yourself a digital marketer, you're just a marketer. And it certainly falls in line with everything that I do in my career and with my clients, which is I just look at their business, learn the business at an in-depth level, and then decide tactic-wise what's going to make the most sense, what's going to be the most impactful thing for their business. In one way, shape, or form, I always have content marketing involved, but maybe it's not the first thing I do. Maybe there's some other things that they have to take care of first, and look at all of their marketing as a whole and not just on digital properties, because the same way that in social media marketing and even is becoming less and less of a popular term if you look at Google Trends. And I think that is just because social media marketing is just part of your marketing strategy now. You can't just be a social media marketer, because social media marketing should just be one aspect of what you do. So the title of this, Quietly Marketing, essentially no matter what you're doing, even down from TV, radio, PR, anything you're doing, even internal communications, it's all just quietly marketing. It's all just sitting in the background. It's all just marketing. But I'm still going to follow a similar format, kind of thinking about things that are either pretty obvious to look at, like email, SEO, Google algorithms, things like that, and also down to some inspirations. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and how can I equate those to marketing in one way, shape, or form? So, Lessons from the Food Trucks is the name of my first rebranded episode of Quietly Marketing. And this was inspired by NPR from Planet Money, where they followed the daily life of a food truck, and they were looking at it obviously from a money point of view, but I just got fascinated by the marketing of food trucks, and more importantly, lessons that we can take from people who run food trucks in New York City and apply them to our own marketing. So essentially, food trucks is an absolutely fascinating episode. I really encourage you to go listen to it. But essentially, food trucks every single day, and this is in New York City, they get in their food trucks and they have to go into New York City and they have to fight for a position on the street. This is something I was not aware of. I assumed that people who run food trucks had like permits or could have certain parking spots that they had assigned to them or they had to buy. No, that's actually not the case. The fact of the matter is they have to go out and they actually have to go find a spot where they can sit, where they can park, in order to do it. And every other food truck in New York City, and if you've lived in New York City, I lived there for a year, or just visited it, you'll see there's food trucks absolutely everywhere. And tons doing like simple things like hot dogs to even like this one like wings, everything you can think of now. There's a food truck for it, and they're incredibly popular, very easy, fast to get. So there's a few factors at play. One is they have to go find a spot. Two is the legal aspects behind those spots themselves. You have to be a certain way from a curb. You obviously, parking in front of a fire hydrant. Certain areas are just no park zones. So that's one restriction. But more importantly, this is their livelihood. Every single day they have to find a spot that is going to determine how much money they make. So they have to scout out certain spots. Obviously, you want to be in charge, you want to be in front of a business building, if all possible, because those are the people who are coming down looking for lunch, and if you can get a prime spot outside of those, that's really huge. Who else is parked on that street? If you're selling wings, if there's already something with wings on there, do you really want to be a part of that? No, that's another factor to take into point. So this leads me into the first aspect that I found most interesting from a marketing point of view, and how it plays into some of the tactics that I do, and is that the really good food truck people, some people just go and park and don't really give too much thought to it, but the good people who run these food trucks, and from the look of it, people in New York tend to be on the higher level of doing this sort of things, is that they understand customer behavior incredibly well. To the point where the food truck vendor that they were following would go on days when he wasn't doing this and actually observe customer behavior in potential parking spots. So he would start to see what aspects were related to people wanting to get food from vendors. So one of the interesting things was, where do people cross the street? How do they come out of the building? Which way do they tend to filter? How wide is the sidewalk? The wider the sidewalk, the more likely they are to want to get something from a food truck. And that's just watching how people interact with other food trucks as well. Following them, are they interested in food? What types of food work well on certain streets? And they spend days, all their off days and off times, going to research these places and understanding how their customers behave and how can they fit into that. So not how can they manipulate the customers, how can they fit into their customers and where are they going to fit best? And by doing this extra research, they're going to get a leg up on any kind of competition that they might have to get. So that's the number one lesson I want to take away from this episode, is that you have to learn your customers' behavior before you can make an informed decision about what your marketing is going to do. All right, how do they behave with your website? Before you decide to completely redo your content and start writing things, start looking at the analytics on your own site. How are people trafficking through your website, much like they do through New York City? How do they traffic through your website? What types of content are they interested in? And how can you make your content easy for them to find on your website itself? And that goes for everything. If you have a retail shop, make sure you do your research in other retail shops. How are people going through those things? How are they shopping? What are they interested in? What do they like? What do they do not like? So that's the main thing I want to take from food trucks. Now I'm going to take a slight skew here and talk about a movie that involved a food truck that also had some lessons into it. And this is an episode I want to do for a long time because I just love the movie and I love the marketing aspect to the movie itself. And this is from the movie Chef with Jon Favreau, the guy who directed Iron Man. And just to give you a quick breakdown, it's about a chef who has a incredibly successful restaurant. He's well renowned within his city as a great chef. But then a food critic comes in and actually gives him a bad review on one of his foods. And he gets really angry about this. And actually his kid introduces him to Twitter. And because the food critic gave him a bad review on Twitter, he responds to him back on Twitter, and it becomes this big feud between them. And everyone takes notice, and out of nowhere, this chef gets a huge following, having just joined Twitter, essentially for chewing out this critic online. But I guess that was kind of an unnecessary fact to know. But essentially what he does is he then follows his passion for making Cubanos, so Cuban sandwiches, and he gets a food truck in order to go do this passion. So this is another lesson I want you to know. The reason why he succeeds, and I'll give you a little taste of the movie, you haven't seen it. Eventually he becomes very, very successful. His food truck becomes a big social thing. People start following him. People start knowing when his food truck's going to come into town, and becomes very, very popular. And a big reason why he was so successful, I know it's just a movie, but this can hopefully be related to a lot of things in your life, is this was his passion. He even mentions that this is his passion. He loves making these things. He loves being right at the front end, interacting with his customers. He loves these sandwiches. He's passionate about them. He has a great deal of passion for just food in general and doing a good job. And the food trucks give him a chance to really see people enjoying his food, whereas when he was a chef, he was in the back of the kitchen. He couldn't enjoy seeing people enjoy his food as much. And that's why he is so successful at what he does. That's why in the end, he turns it into restaurants and things like that by the end of the movie. But it all starts with him just having a passion. So make sure that whatever you're doing, you have a passion for. Simple. It sounds simple enough, but and try and get people, if you're going to work with an agency, find people who have that equal passion for what they do. There's, I think certain tactical elements, certain abilities can be overcome if somebody is passionate about what they do. And the final lesson I want to take from this movie, as I go over the 10-minute mark here of my goal, is that take a chance to look at the movie, because what they does is their kid essentially becomes their social media marketer. He has a boy with him, I think he's like 11 or 12 years old, and actually kind of teaches him about Twitter, and he does all the marketing for his food trucks via Twitter. And it's a really cool movie where it integrates Twitter a lot into the movie, follows it, and actually shows it in a better way than any movie I've ever seen, how it integrates Twitter within the movie, and how you see the kid using Twitter to promote the food truck. And essentially he's building an audience through his food truck and using Twitter. So he starts getting excitement. This kid would start tweeting to certain areas where they were going to be going to start getting interest and excitement about this. And it all is based on the fact that he was able to build a little bit of Twitter following from his feud with the online critic. So he already started to build an audience, and he uses that little bit of fame to start promoting his own food truck and building an audience. And like I said in the movie, he builds such an audience, and he becomes so popular, only then does he open up a restaurant. So this is similar tactics to when you start. The reason why you start building a blog before you start doing anything else is you want to start building an audience. If you can build an audience and you get people engaged, you can start selling them anything. So by the time he opened a restaurant, people were clamoring to get to that restaurant because he built an audience through his food truck. So, take your time, build your audience. Just like Joe Paluzzi says, there's nothing more important than getting subscribers. And if you get enough subscribers and you get a big following and a big enough audience and a big enough devoted audience, you can sell them anything. So thank you for listening today. Really appreciate your feedback, thoughts, comments, ideas for future episodes. I'd love to hear all of that. And I thank you for coming to this first episode of Rebranded Quietly Marketing. Thank you, and I will talk to you again next week.